matters for your business. We're so glad to have you with us today. And we want to make sure that you feel welcome to put questions in the chat or the Q&A as we proceed through the content, and we will respond to those questions as time allows at the end of the webinar. So with that, we'll move into our introductions here. My name is Mary Tressel. I'm a director and practice leader for our ESG advisory services at Armanino. Very proud 12-year member of the Armanino firm, and excited to be here with our co-host today. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris Russell. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Mary. Well, good afternoon, all, and it's great to be with you today. My name is Chris Russell. I'm a senior manager at Armanino, and I had the great honor of actually attending the UN COP26 conference in Glasgow last month, and really excited to highlight a couple of really key outcomes and really drive home why this is a great opportunity for business.
Great. And Mike, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mike Kleinbell. I'm a senior director with AMF Media Group. We're a division within Armanino. We're a strategic marketing firm, been around since 2008 within Armanino, and provide marketing communication services from public relations to web design to digital advertising. So pleasure to be here with Chris and Mary.
Great. And I want to let everybody know that we are recording this session, and we will make the slides and the recording available to all participants after the session. So you'll be able to share them within your organization, help you build the business case for deploying environmental, social, and governance strategies and great communication strategies within your organization. So we are here to help you. Our learning objectives today are we're going to help you to answer the COP26 call to action that came from the Financial Alliance for Net Zero. We'll discover the impact on reporting from the creation of the International Sustainability Standards Board. And then we're going to explore best practices for ESG reporting and storytelling. So Chris, we're gonna turn it over to you and have you really explain to the audience what you learned at COP26, the valuable lessons you got there, and the really the connections that you made with the international audience that was there.
Well, thanks, Mary. And so for those of you not familiar with the Conference of Parties, as this acronym stands for, this is the annual conference that brings together all the nations of the world as part of the United Nations. And the singular agenda at this COP26 event is climate change and this crisis that we're in that's really impacting all industries, all businesses, in all parts of the world. The great news that to share with you, this event that happened in Glasgow last month was the largest event in the history. So there was more than 40,000 delegates representing over 200 countries that were part of this event. And just a quick personal note I wanted to share with everyone. This photo you see on the right of a food menu was actually a restaurant I went to in Glasgow. And it was really interesting, the carbon footprint associated with your menu items and what you ordered was on the menu. So much like we have information when you go to the grocery store to choose on nutritional info, what we're seeing in a trend now is how important this issue is to all industries, goods and services worldwide. And so one of the trends that I've noticed just personally, if you get on Google Maps, you now can choose the lowest carbon route of getting from point A to point B. If you book airline travel, if you book a hotel, if you go to a restaurant, as in this example, this is about giving good decision-making tools to organizations for the goods and services. So we're going to highlight that today and excited to share this with you. So one of the things you hear about in the news and you may not be familiar with, but this 1.5 degree pathway, the Paris Agreement, you hear these terms thrown out. I wanted to share something that's really beneficial. This image here you see on the right is from a website, the Climate Action Tracker, and it was just recently updated following COP26. And really to highlight the aspiration of all industries and all countries in the world is to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So that sounds like a long time. That's off into the future. But the takeaway message is we actually need really urgent progress today. And so we're already actually, unfortunately behind where we need to be globally to really achieve the goal of global warming not exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius. And the reason that's important is because that's what the best science in the world says. If we exceed that, we will see the worst impacts of climate change, extreme droughts, extreme rain events, sea level rise. We've seen, the damages from storms, extreme weather, from fire. This impacts all industries. Supply chains are impacted, businesses, communities, homes. And so really the goal for all industries is to achieve this. And one of the, I guess, the bad news items to share with you from this conference is if you just look at the policy commitments from the nations of the world, from the policymakers, we're not on track. So we're already just over 1 degrees warming is where we are today in 2021. And with the current commitments from governments, we're on track to actually exceed and go well over 2 degrees, which again is going to only increase the severity of the impacts. And so really the takeaway message here for all of you is that this is actually an opportunity for business to do what they do best. Government leaders and politicians don't typically move at a fast pace. They don't always agree. And so this is an opportunity for business to actually take the mantle and lead from the front. And there's actually many companies that are doing this today. And it's a great opportunity to differentiate yourself and really take advantage of some incentives that are going to be out there in the next couple of years.
Okay, and so we wanted to give you some of the top 5 business reasons why you want to invest in environmental, social, and governance strategies. So that's ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And when you're thinking about this, we at Armanino believe there is true return on investment for focusing on environmental, social, and governance, ESG. We're not in the business of having you take these steps and look at your carbon footprint, look at your DEI strategies without it being tied directly to what you are trying to achieve with your business strategic plan. So let's run through these options here. So the first reason that resonates with business leaders is follow the money. Chris is going to talk a bit about the financial industry's commitment to addressing climate change. But in addition to that, we've got investors clamoring for the ability to put their money in companies that have strong ESG records. And we also are seeing great operational cost savings when people invest in ESG. In fact, McKinsey reports that you can save up to 60% of your operational costs by addressing your energy, water, and other and supply chain issues for your organization. So there's a strong bottom line reason to get focused on ESG. I think right up there with the bottom line impact of your cost structure is your team. We at Armanino are a people business. We're all about our people, and we recognize that our next leaders are very passionate about social justice, about the environment, and they believe that we should care about those things and address them. In fact, I've met several employees over the last couple of weeks who have said to me, I joined Armanino because you are a certified B Corporation, which means that Armanino has a third-party verification of the way that we operate our business. So as you're looking at how do I keep the roles fulfilled that I need to keep my business moving forward, and I'm looking to new hires, folks just out of college, you really got to think about how you can answer their questions about the impact of the work that they are doing and how your business is having a positive impact on their community. The next point is your customers are also demanding you to focus on ESG. In fact, 69% of consumers are willing to pay a premium, pay more, to buy products from companies that share the same values as them, that they are very transparent about where their products come from, the source of materials. So this is something that you really want to pay attention to if you're a B2C organization. And then the truth of the matter is every company that Chris and I meet when we're talking to them about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, is that they're already doing some things very well, but they're not taking credit for it necessarily. They're not telling their story around the factors that they are already addressing, and then also telling about the goals that they are setting to create even more positive impact. So we encourage you to get the credit that you deserve when it comes to ESG. And then finally, we'll share with you towards the end of this presentation some examples of where a company can actually really suffer from backlash of greenwashing, of telling a story where they paint a picture of doing a great job of ESG, but they are actually not following through on the commitments that they publicize. So, and investors are concerned and clamoring for ESG reporting requirements from the SEC, and the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, has made a commitment they will come out with ESG reporting requirements for public companies. So investors are asking for it, and the SEC is going to respond. So there will be more transparency from a government regulation perspective. So we have our first polling question. I want to encourage you to participate here. This webinar, because it's 30 minutes, you will not be getting CPE, but we do think it's important for you to kind of analyze and determine which of those 5 reasons that we just talked about is most compelling to you, to your organization, if you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. So is it that you want to reduce those operational costs and have access to financing? Are you really looking to win the talent war and get the best crop of new hires you can for your organization? You want to command that premium pricing, get the credit you deserve for what you are doing well, or avoid the backlash from greenwashing? Are you out there putting out impact statements, but you're concerned that you don't have the audit trail behind the data that you're using? So Megan, do we look like we're getting enough people to vote here? Are we ready to close the poll?
Yeah, definitely. I'll close it in just a moment here. All right, and you should be able to see the results.
This looks great. I mean, we've got a spread, and that makes sense. Everybody has different reasons for addressing ESG, but it looks like the top 2 are follow the money and getting credit for what you deserve. So I think what that means to us is the folks on the call do care about ESG, and they're already working on it, Chris. So that's exciting. So we can go ahead and close that, and we'll move on to the next slide.
So now we'd like to share a couple of really big outcomes from the COP26 conference. And the first one is actually really a sign of some good news and some collaboration, both in Europe and in the United States. Next slide. And so this is what you see here are, for the last 15 to 20 years, there's been some highly reputable organizations, both in Europe and the United States. For example, the Global Reporting Initiative that's based in Europe, the CDP that's based here in the United States, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, the Integrated Reporting, which is actually now part of the group that's in Europe. That group has been around for quite a few years, and really the takeaway message is that the standards for disclosure of non-financial matters has really matured. However, it's not been consistent. And so the good news is the announcement at the COP26 event in June of next year, these groups are all coming together to form this International Sustainability Standards Board. And so there'll be one one truth for guidance and reporting frameworks. And so this is really something that the financial markets have been demanding. And this is a way to really consolidate and streamline non-financial reporting. Really important for climate. And Mary highlighted some of the other big issues that are really going to be targeted by the SEC, like, for example, diversity, equity, and inclusion. A lot of these real key issues are all coming to the forefront for investors, for employees, for communities. And the great news here is that there'll be this one framework that will really allow companies to tell their story in a way that's verifiable, in a way that can be audited and really represent the best practice in the industry, as these issues tend to be more complicated than just the financial reporting. However, some of the really great lessons from the financial reporting industry are being integrated into how we're reporting on environmental and social issues. Next slide. And so one of the other really big announcements, the biggest financial announcement and commitment that happened at COP26 was this Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. I actually was just reading a report this morning in Bloomberg, one of the big news stories on Bloomberg this morning. It had a pretty striking headline that if you took the financial services industry globally and it were a country, the carbon emissions from the finance industry would be the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. About the same as Russia as a country, just to give you some scale. And so that's really the magnitude of the issue. However, this big announcement that happened in Glasgow is these industry leaders in all aspects of whether it's banking, it's underwriters, it's insurers, have all come together with this same goal, which is to achieve net zero carbon by 2050. And so again, one of the key takeaways here is going to be these banks and insurers, they're going to be looking how to show their value chain is really driving progress. And they're holding themselves accountable annually to report every dollar financed, what the resulting carbon emissions impact is going to be. So this is going to be a great opportunity for businesses that have sustainable models that are focused on renewables, on efficiency, on helping others really reduce their carbon footprint. There's going to be preferential lending from banks for those types of innovative products. There's going to be preferred insurance rates for those types of things. The credit rating agencies are going to value the work you're doing, and you're going to see a better credit rating, which is going to lower cost of capital. So there's going to be a lot of momentum that this financial industry is driving. And again, the good news is, even though the policymakers are moving slow, businesses and the financial institutions are moving fast in the space.
Thank you, Chris. And that's really an opportunity for our audience to take advantage of that new kind of influx of capital, correct?
Absolutely. The money is going to be flowing, and I saw another news report this week from JP Morgan that they're expecting these investments to double year over year. So there's a strong push, and they're going to be actively looking for businesses that have the products and services that are going to be delivering the results.
Perfect. Okay, so to be ready for that and to position yourself well to receive that financing and that investment influx, we really want you to think about and focus on your ESG reporting and storytelling. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. So let me start up, even though we're going to talk a little bit about how businesses are viewed as an opportunity. Let me just sort of set a quick framework for you. We're both producing and seeing more and more marketing plans that have ESG in the title. So marketing, branding, and ESG. And so it's really not a forced conversation at all, but totally appropriate and necessary, because when we're talking about the things all that Chris was referring to, and the data and the initiatives, et cetera, companies are very interested in, okay, how do we ensure that this identity that we're creating shows up in our brand vision, and then how we express that vision through our brand profile. So how are we ensuring that that's coming through? Who are the audiences that we need to speak to and want to hear from us? So your stakeholder audiences, your investors. They may not necessarily be investors, but the increasingly active online community that can both drive investors and investors watch, and all other stakeholder groups. So it's super important topic, and it's just becoming baked into the branding and the marketing initiatives. So we want to talk a little bit about those communication opportunities. And so thank you. I want to set this set up before we talk about some best practices on external and internal with some favorable positioning for business. And so we're referring here, this is a kind of power statement or a pull-out statement from the very well-known, long-standing Edelman Trust Barometer, the annual survey of perception and how industry and government, et cetera, is perceived and what that can mean from a communication standpoint. So businesses are businesses an institution that at the moment is perceived as both competent and ethical. So you're coming in as a business with that advantage. You don't have an obstacle in competence or ethics in a macro sense to overcome that government, or I say me, I'm a former journalist before I got into this, the media would have, bless their heart. So there's that opportunity kind of right now with business. And then another opportunity to keep aware of, next slide. CEOs, we all see the more and more prominent position that CEOs are playing. They're always play a big role, but whether it's simply, especially since COVID, the focus on the stock markets, the focus on the big role that business played in our lives during COVID, social media, et cetera. So much focus and attention is paid to business leaders, and with that is now an expectation that they lead and hold themselves accountable. It's sort of always been there, but it's definitely something highlighted, and this is also from the Edelman Trust Barometer, highlighted in contrast to maybe other leaders in other industries. So there's two opportunities there that are just the positioning that's already kind of handed to you as a business, and so just be aware, but also an expectation. Next slide. And then on reporting, and Chris or Mary, you can add to what you were talking about before. It's okay if you didn't, but as you talked about what the marketplace is demanding and what the SEC is going to provide in terms of regulations and reporting, and so that is it's a risk. Obviously, if you're not addressing it, and so something to be aware of is that the huge opportunities, of course, but there are risks if you're not doing it well, doing it right, and making a really sincere and authentic effort to tell your story well. Next slide. So some approaches to both internal and external communications, and just hit on a couple. And we'll start first, and these are often true in a lot of different initiatives. But first, on internal, consistent internal messaging. Your employees are tremendous ambassadors for you. So just as they are ambassadors of your overall brand, they are ambassadors and carriers of this message. And so practicing consistent internal messaging is going to be really important, and that you're communicating clearly with people. What are your values? What is your mission? What are your goals? And then they have a greater appreciation, or have the needed appreciation for where they're working, but then also can carry that message out. A wider dissemination of your strategy. Obviously, you need to think about tactics. How are you communicating what you're doing on ESG internally? Do you have an intranet, or do you by email? Do you have CEO talks, et cetera? So all of these things need to be considered when you're looking at internal communications and how you're going to bake ESG into it. And then engage the influential as active champions. And this comes back to making sure that senior management can, as they say, walk the walk, that they really understand what you're doing on ESG and can really communicate that out to their teams. So some things to think about on internal communications. Moving over to external communication, one, digitized, accessible sustainability reports. So just as in the old days, when you did sales, you had collateral. You don't have that old-fashioned kind of collateral, but you need people to be able to engage your content both in snippets and in an in-depth way. So you can think about sustainability reports they can get online. You can think about a microsite. You can think about an individual page on your website. You can think about what videos and other kind of multimedia you want to use to communicate to people. Two, think about a thought leadership program. How are you going to communicate that you're at the front, you're best in class, and then are there people within your senior management that can participate in that leadership program? So that can be with blogs, attending conferences, speaking engagements, et cetera. And then third is Glassdoor as an example of employee evangelism to support hiring. So if you've communicated well with your employees and you've engaged them in a sincere and authentic way, then I think we think it's good to make them aware of the opportunities that they organically have to express that to the world, not in a forced or inauthentic way, but simply as you let them know that you encourage them to let the world know what the company is doing and what those avenues are. So those are just some things to think about on internal and external external communications and including ESG in that.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks very much. So we're going to do another polling question in our last couple minutes here, and that is your company ready to take advantage of both the ESG opportunities and avoid those ESG risks? So we'd love for you to just fill that out. While we're doing that, an interesting question came in, and that was, should a company be aggressive, not be aggressive, but should a company put their communications efforts behind politicians who are being aggressive to address climate change? And I have opinion on that, Mike, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are too, as far as a communications tactic, an external communications tactic.
So no exact way to answer that question. That's going to be, I mean, you totally get it. It's sort of what is the why would they want to do that? So does that fit with, depending on what kind of company it is, what their overall objectives are? Is there some reason to have an association? If you're a company that has a lot of government contracts, making this and you by necessity have to have great partnerships with certain politicians, certain elements of the government that are supporters of you and your partners, then yeah, that might be a place where you need to have that kind of relationship, just because it goes with your business.
Yeah, I think my suggestion would be to make sure that you get your own house in order as a business and be able to tell your own story first before going down that path. That would be a recommendation that I would have. Megan, can we close the polling question here and just see the responses? So it looks like, again, this is a great proactive audience. About half of the audience is ready to take advantage of ESG and kind of make hay while the sun is shining here. And I actually don't think the sun is going to set on ESG. This is a moment in time that is really getting businesses to, we can close the poll, but it's getting businesses to focus on a long-term strategy and a resilient business strategy when it comes to ESG. So we want to make sure, for those of you who want a kind of a Sherpa to guide you along and provide you support and insights as you are building out your ESG strategy, you are communicating it, you're building those evangelists within your organization, you can turn to Chris, Mike, and I, and we will be there to support you as you are doing that. So it's really been great to have you on the call, and we also encourage you to visit our website and learn more about the environmental social governance impact that you can have on your business. And we're happy that you spent the day with us. I know we had one more question. We will answer that via email because we want to make sure that everybody can end the call here at the end of time here. So thank you for joining us again today, Mike, Chris. Thank you very much for your insights, and have a great day. And we'll make these slides and PowerPoint and recorded presentation available to you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.